They say silence has a color. If that's true, then the one inside the Grand Harmonia Hall was a cold, gleaming white, like the polished marble floor that didn't dare echo my footsteps. I wasn't supposed to be there. Not in that place of chandeliers that breathed like ice, not beneath the velvet banners that whispered nobility with every ripple. I was mud. I was wind. I was a broken string in a room tuned to perfection. They called this the crown jewel of Auder's cultural season, the gala of sound and splendor, a competition for the exquisitely trained, the famously bred, the genetically golden. Tickets alone cost more than the orphanage spent in a year. Yet here I stood, small and shoeless, heart rattling behind a second-hand dress stitched by candlelight. I didn't come for the spotlight. I came chasing a dog, a three-legged mongrel I named Hope. Not because he looked it, but because he needed it. He'd run through the servant's gate, lured by scent or sound, or some trick of fate, and I followed. One corridor became 2. 2 became 20, and somehow, by the time I caught up to him, I was standing behind the side curtain of the main stage, blinking into a universe of gold. I should have turned back. I should have hidden. But something kept me there. Maybe the way the air held its breath. Maybe the way my lungs forgot to fill. Next performer, Elisabeth Caldenza of House Merivale. A name like silk. A name meant to be announced. But no one moved. No girl in a diamond gown stepped forward. And then Hope barked. It was sharp, sudden, echoed like thunder through a too still world. And somehow I moved. I didn't mean to walk. My legs did what my thoughts could not. Maybe I believed I could whisper that it was a mistake, that I was lost, that no, I wasn't Elisabeth, just a shadow with no direction. But by the time I reached center stage, the lights had already found me. I heard them first. The gasps, the soft laughter. Someone said, "Is that part of the act?" Another voice, crueler, older. "This is what happens when you open the doors too wide." I stood there like a ghost in a child's dream, the kind that doesn't float, but aches. I looked at the judges, masks carved of bone and boredom. One was checking his watch. Another had her head tilted, curious, like studying a stain on silk. In my satchel, tied with a red thread, was all I had left of home. A tin harmonica, half a biscuit wrapped in cloth, and a song with no name. It was a melody my mother used to hum while peeling potatoes, while weaving silence into comfort, while rocking me to sleep on nights when war thundered in the distance. I hadn't sung it in years, not out loud, only inside my chest, where memory and grief made their home. I didn't plan to sing. I didn't think they'd let me. But the room did not move. The lights did not dim. No one stopped me. And somewhere behind all that white silence, a thread tugged. So I opened my mouth, and I gave them the mountain. The first note trembled. It wasn't beautiful, not in the way they were used to. Not honed, not ornamented. It wavered like wind through broken shutters. Alive, raw, unsure. And in that brief second, when the breath caught in my throat and the melody nearly slipped away, I heard them again. The cough, the scoff, a laugh, short and slicing. It came from somewhere to the left, boyish, rich, coated in that peculiar breed of cruelty that never had to earn its own laughter. "Is this a skit?" someone whispered, too loud. "No," came another voice. "It's a charity case in costume." I closed my eyes, like I used to in the fields when the thunder rolled closer. In the darkness behind my lids, I saw her again. Mama, her back bent, her voice a thread pulled between storms. And so I sang the next, Line. The song was old. Older than Auder. Older than the gala. Older than language itself, it felt. The words were not meant for elegant tongues. They curled from the throat like smoke, low and round, shaped by ache, by longing, by something no academy could teach. And still, the room resisted. A man near the front reached for a champagne flute and sighed. A young noblewoman turned to whisper into her friend's ear, lips moving with silent precision, practiced in the art of polished derision. But I kept going. The third line came, stronger. My voice deepened, wrapped in something I hadn't expected. Grit, like dirt under fingernails, like bark against bare hands, like the courage of someone with nothing left to lose. And something shifted. The laughter stopped, not all at once, but like waves recoiling from shore. There was a stillness that settled, almost unwillingly. Eyes narrowed, not with cruelty now, but confusion. The kind of stillness that arrives just before awe realizes it's late to the party. I saw a woman with pearls on her gloves lower her hand. A boy who had been chewing gum paused mid-bite, lips slightly parted. And from the corner of the judge's table, one hand slowly stopped drumming. Lord Malvin, they called him the Ear, said he once rejected a 12-year prodigy for being soulless. Said he could hear a lie in a note before the sound even left. Your mouth. He stood, emotion so unexpected it pulled breath from the room like a vacuum. Even I flinched. For a moment I thought the spell had broken, that I would be dragged off stage, made example of. But his voice, when it came, was not thunder. It was soft. Again, he said. Not a question. Not a request. A command wrapped in wonder. The crowd stirred. Whispers bloomed like mushrooms in the dark. Did he just... She's not even on the list. I thought she was a janitor's child. I opened my mouth again. This time there was no tremble. The melody returned like an old friend, clearer, rounder, bolder. Every word fell heavy, like raindrops on marble. And with each phrase, the room leaned in. There was no music, no orchestra, no lights sinking to the beat. Just a girl and a song, passed down through ashes and hunger and love that had no need for translation. In that second chorus, something broke. Not loudly, but like ice cracking beneath candlelight. A woman gasped. A man dropped his program. Someone in the back wiped their cheek and pretended it was dust. No one filmed. No one live tweeted, not because they didn't want to, because they forgot to. And yet, somewhere outside that chamber, in the echo chambers of the internet, someone had already clipped a grainy video, uploaded it, captioned it. Who is this girl? And why am I crying? By the time I reached the final line, my throat was thick, my chest burned. The words were barely sound anymore, just vibration and memory. The kind of thing you feel in your bones before your ears understand. And then, silence. Real silence. Not the kind from discomfort or disdain, but the kind that comes when breath itself is suspended. When the soul holds its hands over its mouth. In reverence, then came the voice that cut through everything. That's not talent. That's manipulation. It was him, Lord Castrian Verlaine. He sat with one ankle over his knee, as if bored by resurrection itself. His voice was soaked in disdain. She doesn't belong here, he said. This is a gala, not a village fair. We cannot let sentiment contaminate standards. His words stung. Not just me. I could see it. In the twitch of a judge's brow. The way the velvet boy finally looked down. But before anyone could respond, another voice, old and weathered and trembling, rose from the back of the hall. And when I turned, I saw her. The one no one had noticed, veiled, sitting still as stone through it all. She stood. She pulled back the lace from her face. Gasps burst like sparks. Lady Iravel, founder of the gala. Legend, untouchable. And her eyes were wet. The hall tilted. Or maybe it was just the air, suddenly too thick, too electric. Every gaze swung toward the veiled figure now standing like a ghost remembered too late. Lady Iravel. Even her name sounded like legacy. She hadn't appeared, in public for years. Rumor said she'd gone blind. Another claimed she'd been disillusioned with the art she once worshipped. The last time she spoke at the gala, a prime minister asked for a transcript. But now, here she stood, eyes glistening, voice like parchment laced with fire. That voice, she whispered. I haven't heard it since I was 5. No one breathed. She stepped forward. Slowly, cane tapping with the weight of years, each step a punctuation mark on the silence. When I was a girl, she continued, her gaze never leaving me, I had a nanny from the mountains. Her name was Elra. She wore scarves stitched with cloud-colored thread and sang to me in that same language, that same song. I used to dream it, long after she died. She paused, her chin quivered. I thought I'd never hear it again. I wanted to forget, because remembering hurt too much. A murmur rippled through the hall, not of doubt, but of disbelief. Reverence, and you. Her voice cracked, and for the first time, she looked fragile. Not weak, human. You brought it back, not just the song, the feeling, the raw, holy ache of it. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if I was allowed to speak. So I didn't. Lady Iravel turned to the judges. Her hand trembled, but her spine did not bend. If this child is wrong for this stage, she said, her voice growing stronger, then this stage has lost its soul. The crowd exhaled like a single creature, and suddenly, everything fractured, not in collapse, in awakening. A young girl in the second row stood. She was dressed in satin, hair braided into impossible patterns. Royalty, perhaps, or something close to it. She lifted her voice, shaky, but steady. Sing it again, please. And others joined. I want to learn it. I want my children to hear this. I don't care if she's not trained and that was truth. Lord Castrian scoffed, tried to speak again, but his words were drowned beneath the rising tide. People began rising from their seats, one by one, like dawn breaking across a frozen field. It wasn't protest. It was hunger. A need awakened. They didn't want precision. They didn't want power. They wanted something real. A young technician near the sound booth held up her phone, live streaming now. The screen showed hearts and fire emojis spilling like a dam burst. Hashtags bloomed like wildfire. The girl from the mountains, broken song heals, Adair listens, then Lady Iravel did something no one expected. She reached into her cloak and drew out a scrap of fabric, faded, fragile. She unfolded it slowly. It was a child's drawing, a hill, a house, a woman holding hands with a small girl. Musical notes floated above. I drew this, she said, after Elra died, and the night after, I sang her song to myself so I wouldn't forget. She turned to me. Do you know her name? I nodded. My lips parted. Elra was my grandmother. It wasn't planned. It wasn't dramatic. It just was. The connection made the room tilt again. Not in chaos, but in awe. Suddenly, I was no longer the barefoot girl who had wandered onto the wrong stage. I was the voice that time had silenced, now returned. The judges leaned into one another, whispering with Quick, tight voices. Lord Malvin's face was unreadable. His fingers drummed against his knee, then stopped. He stood. "I propose," he said. "An amendment to the tradition." No one interrupted. He looked at me. This gala was meant to celebrate excellence. But excellence is not always polished. It is not always packaged. He stepped forward, then offered a trembling hand. "I ask you, a lyra of the song, to teach us." I blinked. The room spun a little. Somewhere behind me I heard Hope bark, soft as if urging me on. "Teach? I only know the one," I whispered. "Then let us begin there," he said. And for the first time in gala history, the judges left their table, the nobles left their seats, and the crowd formed a circle around the girl they'd nearly thrown away. They handed out scraps of napkin and envelopes and embroidered programs. I wrote out the lyrics, phonetically, clumsily, and then we sang. Badly, at first. Like a choir of broken bells. But it didn't matter. The hall filled with the sound of a language lost, now rising note by note into something greater than art, greater than performance. It was a return to something the world had tried to bury under wealth and performance and pride. A reminder that beauty does not always arrive in gold. Sometimes it walks in barefoot. It began with one line, just one. Their voices were clumsy, too crisp in the consonants, too careful in the vowels. The mountain tongue wasn't meant for royalty. It was meant for riverbanks, for lullabies stitched into twilight. But still, they sang, and I stood in the middle of it all, not as a performer, not as a spectacle, as a keeper of something ancient, something stolen by silence, now returned by mistake, or by design. Lady Iravel held my hand. Her fingers were cold and trembling, but she sang too. Her voice was more breath than sound, yet it carried. It meant. Across the room, the boy in the velvet suit, he who had laughed first, lowered his eyes. He moved his lips slowly, awkwardly. He was trying. Someone behind him recorded with shaking hands. The screen of the phone lit up with a stream of comments. "She's real. That song, I don't even know what it means, but I'm crying. A poor girl walks into the gala and teaches the kingdom what music is. Are you kidding me?" The clip was already going viral. Screens lit up all around the room, reflected in jeweled earrings and lacquered fingernails. 1,000 strangers were now witnesses. And then came the second song. It wasn't mine. It was theirs. One noblewoman began to hum something, tentative, elegant, from the Academy School of Lyric. Another added a counter note. A third wove a harmony. I listened. They were trying to give something back. So I stepped forward, found the root note with my voice, and met their sound in the middle. The sound that rose in that moment was neither folk nor classical. It wasn't mountain nor mansion. It was something else entirely. Something new. Something born in contradiction, fed by humility. The marble walls caught the echo and returned it with grace. Even Lord Castrian had stopped speaking. He sat stiff, pale, unmoving. But I saw the shimmer in his eyes, saw how tightly his jaw clenched to keep emotion inside its cage. I thought of my mother, of how she used to say, "Elira, your song will never be perfect. Just make sure it's true." And it was. A young girl approached the stage, no more than 9. She looked at me with wide, quiet awe. "Can I learn it too?" she asked. I crouched, took her small hands in mine. "It's yours now," I said. It always was. And then, like magic, she sang the first line, soft, unsure. A dozen others joined, voices layered over voices, not for applause but for communion. Not to perform, but to feel. This wasn't a show anymore. It was remembrance. No stage, no audience. Just a room of once divided hearts learning to breathe together, and the camera phones caught it all. By evening, the footage was everywhere. Headlines blazed across every corner of the kingdom. The girl with the forgotten song. Orphan turns, gala into revival. What we forgot, and what she made us remember. But in that moment, I didn't know. Didn't care. Because something bigger had happened. Not to me. Through me. I had not sung to be heard. I had sung to survive. And now, others were surviving too. They began telling their own stories. A judge who confessed he hadn't cried since his wife died 5 winters ago. A noble who admitted her grandmother spoke the same language as mine, but she'd been told to forget it in finishing school. And in this swirl of melody and confession and return, something cracked wide open. It wasn't just about music anymore. It was about everything they had been trained to hide, the tears, the memory, the parts of themselves they'd buried beneath elegance and expectation. One man knelt beside me, gray-haired and trembling. "My mother used to sing something like that," he said, "before she died. I thought I'd forgotten the sound of her voice. But now," his words dissolved into air. So I took his hand, and together we sang one more time, not to prove anything, just to feel it again, to feel alive. By the time the last note faded into the velvet air of the gala hall, it was no longer night. Not really. Something new had dawned, without the sun. Lady Iravel sat beside me, exhausted but radiant, her frail hands still clutching that worn scrap of fabric from her childhood. Across the hall, conversations buzzed, not about rankings or critiques, but about the feeling. How a barefoot girl had shattered a century-old illusion without raising her voice. I stayed behind when the others filtered out. I didn't know where to go. I had no carriage waiting, no estate, no last name to anchor myself in the afterglow of applause. But then Lady Iravel motioned me closer, her voice soft, nearly swallowed by the silence we'd left behind. "There's something you should see," she said. She opened a leather-bound book, old enough to crackle as it breathed. It bore the seal of the Royal Genealogy Archives. Page after page turned, each inked with names I'd never heard but felt somehow, as if they hummed beneath my skin. Then, she stopped. "There," she whispered, tapping the faded name with reverence. "Elra of House Lyren, court musician. Banished 42 years ago for melodic defiance during the regime shift. Your grandmother." My heart didn't beat. It surged. My breath hitched, not in fear, but in a kind of stunned recognition. This wasn't a dream. I was someone. I came from somewhere. I had a story before I was abandoned. "You're not an orphan, Elira," she said. "You are the echo of something that was stolen. And tonight you brought it back." She handed me the book. And in that moment, I didn't feel like a girl holding paper. I felt like I was holding a flame. And for the first time, I knew how to carry it. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. The gala released a statement. "From this year forward, our doors shall remain open to voices of every origin. Let the mountains speak. Let the villages sing." I was offered a place in the Harmonia Conservatory, not as a student, as a teacher. But I said no. I didn't want to teach from marble towers. I wanted to go back to the woods, the fields, the places where silence still ruled. So I traveled. I sang. I listened. I gathered songs from shepherds and seamstresses, from elders who thought no one cared to remember. And then I returned, season after season, with these voices folded into new compositions. Soon, other children came. Barefoot, wide-eyed, holding songs in their throats like secrets. They asked, "Can we belong too?" And I told them what Lady Iravel had told me. "You already do." Hope, the three-legged dog, became something of a legend. They made a statue of him outside the gala hall, nose tilted skyward, as if listening, as if reminding. The final change came quietly, the way true healing often does. A new plaque was placed at the entrance of the gala, in memory of Aelra of House Leorin, and in honor of Alira, her granddaughter, who reminded us that truth is the highest form of music. I visit it every year. I sit beneath the statue with a harmonica in my pocket and the wind in my hair. Sometimes tourists recognize me, sometimes they don't. It doesn't matter, because I know who I am. I am Alira. I am the girl who sang at the wrong show and found everything right. And if you ever find yourself lost, unheard, unnamed, sing. Even if your voice trembles. Even if the room laughs. Even if the world says, "Not here." Sing anyway, because someone is always listening. And when they finally hear you, they won't just remember your name. They'll remember their own.
If this story stirred something in you, even just a flicker, please share it. Someone out there might need to hear it today. And if you believe in voices that don't fit the mold, in stories that heal, and in truth told softly but powerfully, subscribe. This space is for you. Let's keep singing together.